Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this episode we have three top stories. The first story is the voter manipulation that is going on among different stations of the IEBC that are set to register new voters currently. So there are allegations that have arrived at the civic lens that there are methods being used by certain officials to put individuals who are not supposed to vote in one area in that area because certain MCAs or certain member of county governments want that done. But in the bigger spectrum, the United Opposition is saying that the refugees are being registered in different stations in northern Kenya, and this is a move to manipulate the voter come 2027 and introduce foreigners to be part of that voting system. That will be our major story. But other than that, we'll also take a look at the two dead GSU officials, one that was killed yesterday at State House and the other that died just in a span of 1 week next to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport after having an altercation with a man. Our third story will be what is Ruto's next harvest now that he has had all the eggs he wanted in his basket. And he has even gone extra to take some more that does not belong to him by including SK Macharia, who has since been a supporter of Raila Odinga, as part of the eggs in that basket. I'm your host Ogola, and this is the Civic Lens. So let's start with the main story. Now, it's our civic responsibility here at the Civic Lens to first inform you of your civic duty. And it's your civic duty to vote. If you are a Kenyan citizen and you have attained an age of majority being 18 years of age and you have a national ID, then you can register as a voter, you can register for the voter card. The importance of this is that come 2027, even if you do not have a preferred candidate, you will have the option to walk into the ballot station and vote. Now, as a result of that, since the beginning of September, around September 28th, the IEBC had begun registration of voters across the nation. This particular exercise was lauded as being an opportunity for now new voters who had not voted previously to have a chance and vote come 2027. But it's also been criticized that the youth somehow do not get an opportunity to go to these particular platforms, even if they are the hope of turning this government around come 2027. Now, new developments have developed around this voter registration area that is fit for your consumption, and here the Civic Lens we will delve into it. The first one is the officials of the United Opposition, including Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, who is the party leader of the DAP Kenya, has blamed the government for registration of foreigners. Others say that residents and Kenyan citizens from the northern region say that Somalians and Ethiopians are now walking into the border, being issued by identity cards and going ahead to register as voters.
Warundi wanachukua kura Nairobi. Waganda wanachukua kura Nairobi. Waethiopia wanachukua kura even in Nairobi. I've got this message from a whistleblower called Nyakera. He just sent it to us. We have nothing against United Nations Convention in support of refugees. But refugees should remain refugees. They should not become Kenyans. So we have tutaweka macho.
Now, you remember this border issue was a topic of conversation some times back, that the northern region area and the refugees around that Dadaab line and Kakuma area were being allowed to possess identity cards. Slowly, like most stories in the Kenyan controversy scene, it died down the water lane. Now you can see with the registration of voters with the IEBC that it has been unearthed again, and it's coming from this cohort of the United Opposition who feel like this is foul play by the government come 2027 if the government can manipulate how foreigners and refugees get to have identity cards and vote in a way that they are instructed come 2027 to the detriment of the Kenyan citizens. Now, refugees are people that we host in our country, and there have been talks previously whether or not they should work and make a living so as to build in the national economy. That conversation still goes on in different particular legal spaces. Now, there is a new conversation on whether they should vote or not in our country. This is the legal position, and it's our duty again at the Civic Lens to inform you. that a refugee is an alien, and if they have not even attained an alien position within a country, they do not have a right to vote. An alien himself does not have a right to vote. An alien is actually just a foreigner who is a friend to the country and is in the country for a period of time for either business or diplomatic ties or something of the sort. So the IEBC position to register without verifying whether or not these are Kenyan citizens or refugees is a fault on their end. And if these allegations from the United Opposition is anything to go by, then the IEBC should take a look on who registers as a voter, mostly in the Kenyan borders, to protect the sovereignty of this particular country and the supremacy of its people and its constitution come 2027 in the voting ballot box. Now, that particular story done, there is also an allegation that has arrived in the social media spaces coming from one of the musicians who went to actually register as a voter. And Mr. Sid is saying that when he went to register as a voter, he witnessed an MCA who was bringing individuals to register as voters and talking to certain IBC officials to put their place of voting as the region where the MCA comes from, irrespective of where they come from. Now, you remember sometimes back we detailed that right now you can be in Busia and you want to vote in Bungoma, or you can be in Kisii and you want to vote in Malindi, and you just have to walk to the next nearby Huduma Center or an IBC registration point, and irrespective of where you are, they will put you at the right place where you want to vote at. Now, certain members of parliament, members of county governments, and politicians have taken advantage of this new creation of easiness within the IBC registration process to now divert certain voters to their backyard as an advantage come 2027. Now, this is also another rot that's happening in different registration points, and we call upon the IBC to be vigilant in these particular stations to ensure that a voter who registers as a voter is allocated to vote in the place where that voter wants, and there is no other influence coming externally on where that voter is being allocated. It's our duty again here at the Civic Lens to ensure that that civic duty is obeyed. Now let's go to our second and third story. Our second story is a tragedy. A very interesting tragedy. In a period of 1 week, 2 GSU officials have been killed. Now, they have been killed shortly after there was a revelation that certain officials of the government used the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to smuggle drugs abroad. And as a result, Miguna, Rigathi Gachagua, and such-like individuals have blamed certain officials in government for the arrest that was made abroad for cocaine that passed through Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
I have been speaking, and anything I've told Kenyans have come to pass. Anything I've said. I said about bombers of Kenya, it has come to pass. I said about RSF, it has come to pass. I said President William Ruto has appointed drug barons into his cabinet. I have been vindicated the day before yesterday. Drugs are being smuggled through JKI.
Who in his cabinet is in charge of that?
You have seen the photographs. The people who are smuggling drugs through the airport, you have seen their photographs with the cabinet minister. And everybody knows that cabinet minister who is a drug baron. There are two. And I asked William Ruto, he had put me in charge of fighting drugs and alcoholism. When he was appointing these two ministers, I asked him, Mr. President, where does that leave me? How do I continue with this war on drug abuse when I'll be sitting in the same cabinet with the drug barons? That expose that has happened at the airport, if William Ruto has any decorum remaining, he must sack that minister. The evidence is there. The people who are smuggling drugs through JKI, the photographs with his minister is there. And you can see clearly that the minister is actually the one who is facilitating, you know, the peddling of the smuggling of drugs through the airport, because the drugs that have been caught, the documentation was saying that they are minerals that are going for testing. So the ministry is being used for drug trafficking because the minister has been a drug baron, and it is in public domain. Everybody knows. There is nobody in this country who doesn't know. But William Ruto has no qualm because of his own business interest with that minister and the deals they are doing together. He has no qualms about appointing a fellow involved in drugs to the cabinet when our children are in trouble. How does William Ruto face parents today? And you know, he was telling parents that they are responsible for bad upbringing. When he has appointed ministers who are peddling drugs, they are sitting in his cabinet. When now there is evidence that that minister and his associates are involved in drug trafficking, how does he face parents and accuse them of bad upbringing when his minister, who is his business partner, is involved in drug peddling, cocaine, hard drugs in this country? These are some of the things, Dennis, that got me very tired. And today, in fact, I feel very relieved I'm not part of that government. I don't know how I'll be able now. This week, I would have gone to cabinet after what happened at JKIA. I don't know how I would have gone to sit in that cabinet with that minister when I was in charge of fighting drugs and alcoholism on behalf of government, and then I have to sit with the minister who is facilitating drugs.
Now, as I said earlier, Kenyan strategies or Kenyan controversies come, then they water down quickly, and perhaps you had forgotten this. That story went down so quickly, and so it should remain down. And as a result, there are Kenyans who have tied the deaths of these two GSU officials to that story. Let's start with the guy that was killed in Jomo Kenyatta International Airport area. Allegedly, the individual was not killed in the airport. He was killed around the airport. So that actually is a very important information, because if the officer was killed inside the airport, then you would say perhaps he was a whistleblower or he knew something to do with this deal. But the individual that is killed at JKA is killed around the airport after having an altercation with a man and is drowned. It's actually, strangled and drowned. It takes so much courage from the citizenry to approach an international airport, look for your ops, strangle him and drown him, yet he is an officer like a GSU, he's a police officer who is serving under state instructions. But that's not our main one. Our main one is what happened yesterday. Now, this one has a very interesting line to it that you have to actually have democratic lenses to understand that it was not a mistake and it could have been an intentional cover-up. The individual called Kinyuka Kinyumi is 56-year-old. He says that he was sent by Satan to kill now the constable whose name has been revealed to be Constable Ramadan Kamisi. Now, this is a very interesting place to begin from. So let's start from the beginning. The gentleman says he was sent by Satan to come and kill this officer. Now, if Satan was an individual in this country, we don't know who Satan would really be. But Satan, in his interest or in his spectrum, is he was sent by the devil to come and kill this particular officer. So witnesses detail that he came identifying himself or behaving like a street man or a street family member, carrying sacks and pretending to walk like a street family member towards Gate D of the State House that is off the Dennis Pritt Road. So when he gets to this Gate D place, he hides next to a flower bed and pulls his sack from his back and puts it down. And as the officers are trying to verify who enters the State House and what their credentials are, he removes his bow from this particular sack, sets it at the chest of just this one constable, Ramadan Kamisi, and not in the other officer's chest that they were talking with. And shortly after he's arrested, then after that is when he says he was sent by Satan to come and specifically kill that officer. Now, he has still been put in custody to establish more of his motive, but here at the civic lens, we feel like his motive is so clear. First, just look at it this way. Who would bravely enough leave the confines of his home to go to State House, where the president lives, to kill the State House guard? I mean, not a lot of Kenyans have wanted to actually demonstrate all the way to that building, but none has done that. None can do that. None has wanted to do that. Like consciously leaving the confines of your home to go kill a guard at State House just because Satan has told you. Now, that's one. The second is you even devoid or deform a way of behaving prior to the act. So you have decided, I am going to kill this guard at State House, but to get there, I am going to carry a sack, I'm going to put an arrow inside this sack, and I'm going to pretend like a street family member, and when they are not watching, I'm going to put the sack next to a flower bed, pull the arrow and shoot the officer. That's a very well calculated motive of assassination that cannot be left to just have been a random thought sent by Satan. It looks like an intention that he's set to come and actually eliminate this one officer for whatever reasons that he was being eliminated for. And the plan goes beyond Mr. Kinyuka himself. He perhaps must have been in debt of some serious person who wanted the officer out, and as a result, he was just a means to have that particular assassination done. We hope to see what comes out of the investigation of the dead GSU officer, and whether or not Mr. Kinyumi was acting on his own volition, or whether he was under instructions of other superior powers. But like I said, Kenyan's controversies water down so quickly, and after a week this will not be a story anymore. Now on to our main political story, and the last one is, what is Ruto's next harvest? In our previous episode here, The Civic Lens, ladies and gentlemen, we detailed that prior to the 2022 elections, President William Ruto's biggest enemies were the dynasties. Now, talking to you in October 2025, President William Ruto's friends are no one else rather than the dynasties. The people that he hated so much, he has joined. The Uhuru Kenyatta, or Raila Odinga, and Gideon Moi are now the closest individuals that President Ruto consults with when it comes to political matters. President Ruto, who was not even allowed to see Moi when alive, had an opportunity in the previously known Moi Day to walk into the Moi's premises and put a sheath of flowers on Moi's grave. He humorously did that and then went ahead to address the people that are affiliated to the region where Moi used to come from in Baringo, even promising to build a university in Baringo as a payback for Moi's university that he built in Eldoret. This particular political move that is aimed to bring the Baringo people closer to government, but specifically to have these talents that Kenyans don't know that Gideon has closer to William Ruto, is also been viewed in other lenses to be actually a mockery to the previous Moi regime, and sadly to be the end of that particular Moi regime. We detailed on how Gideon Moi's exit of the Senate seat has had an effect on erosion of the Moi's legacy, and the Moi unity being the final card that Ruto required to finish the Moi legacy in that region. But this is not about the Moi legacy individually. The Moi legacy, the Kenyatta legacy, the Oginga legacy are now legacies that William Ruto has put beneath his feet, and he has gone ahead to have the media back him up. Now, before we come to an end, I just want you to understand this concept. For you to maintain power for quite some time, you require first a very strong political alignment, and that William Ruto has acquired. He has Uhuru Kenyatta, he has Raila Odinga, he has the Gideon Moi family. Number two, you have to require the media so that they can shape your stories the way you want them shaped. And with acquiring Gideon Moi, he has acquired the Standard magazine. With acquiring SK Macharia, he has acquired the entire Royal Media Services, which have over 10 stations speaking vernacular across the nation. And of course, with his current good relationship with the Shah family, he will soon acquire the Nation Media Group that will also shape his narrative. Then the third thing that you require is the courts, so that whatever goes to the court system ends up favoring you or stamping the authority of the executive. I don't know whether or not the courts are fully acquired, but there are conversations that the Supreme Court of the land is playing tides to the current government and the current president. These particular moves that Ruto is making ahead of 2027 should really worry the united opposition or anyone who intends to dare in the national seat as the president, because he does them so intentionally to keep that seat come 2027. This is the Civic Lens.